My father died on a Friday. By Sunday, my older brother had changed the locks on the family farm. By Tuesday, he stood on the porch holding a copy of Dad's will and told me I wasn't getting a single acre. And for 7 years, I believed him. I believed him because Jason didn't act alone. He had help. Standing right beside him on that porch was Mr. Henderson, the local lawyer who had handled our family's affairs for 30 years. Henderson had been at our Sunday dinners. He'd seen me work that land while Jason was away living his high life. Yet, there he was, adjusting his glasses and nodding solemnly. "It's a standard document, Emily," Henderson said, his voice as smooth as river stone. "Your father was very clear. He wanted the estate to remain whole, and he felt Jason had the administrative background to handle it. You have 48 hours to vacate." He handed me a check for $5,000, a settlement, they called it. I was 27, a single mother to my 3-year-old son, Leo, and suddenly, I was a stranger in my own home. I moved into a studio apartment that smelled of damp wood and despair. I took every landscaping job I could find, but the hardest part wasn't the labor, it was the quiet moments. One night, about a year in, I was counting coins on the floor to see if we had enough for the electric bill. Leo was watching me, his eyes too big for his face. "Mom," he whispered, "are we poor now?" I stopped breathing for a second. My hands shook. "No, baby," I said, forcing a smile that felt like it was breaking my face. "We're just building something new." But the universe wasn't done testing me. 2 years later, I had finally clawed my way up. I had 3 trucks and $1 million city contract. I took on a partner named Mark to help manage the scale. I thought I was finally safe. I thought I was winning, until I walked into my office one Monday morning and found the accounts wiped. Mark had skipped the state with the project deposits, the equipment titles, and every cent I'd saved for Leo's future. I was back on the floor counting coins again, but this time with a mountain of debt and a reputation in tatters. Jason called me that week. He didn't offer help. He offered a warning. "I heard about your little business, Emily. Maybe Henderson was right. Some people just aren't built for the big leagues. Stay in your lane before you lose what little you have left." That was the fuel I needed. I didn't just rebuild, I became impossible to outwork. I learned the law. I learned the debt market. I worked until Carter Landscaping and Infrastructure was the name every developer in the state feared. By year 7, I was worth millions. 7 years after I left that farm, a man named Arthur Miller walked into my office. Arthur was a retired legend, a man who had known my father since they were boys. He sat in my glass office and dropped a bomb that shattered my world. "Emily, I was in your father's study 6 months before he passed," Arthur said. "He signed an updated will. Henderson was there. I witnessed it. It was a 50-50 split, with the house going entirely to you." "Henderson told me that will didn't exist," I said, the room starting to spin. "Henderson is a liar," Arthur said. "Your father sent the original to a city lawyer named Thomas Thorne to keep it out of local hands. He didn't trust the politics in this town anymore." I didn't wait. I drove 3 hours to the city that afternoon. I found the address for Thorne's office, my heart hammering against my ribs. I was going to end this, but when I arrived, the building was a Starbucks. I asked around, frantic. A shopkeeper nearby gave me the news that gutted me. "Thorne? He passed away 3 years ago, heart attack. The office closed overnight. Most of the old records were destroyed when the building was sold." I sat in my car and screamed until my throat was raw. It was over. The proof was ash. Jason and Henderson had won. But I'm not the girl who stayed anymore. I'm the woman who builds. I spent $50,000 hiring a forensic archivist. We tracked down Thorne's former secretary, then a storage facility in a different county. For 3 weeks, we dug through moldy boxes in a warehouse that felt like a tomb. On the 20th day, we found it. A blue file. Carter, Robert, Final Testament. When the court date arrived, Jason and Henderson were smug. Henderson stood at the front of the room, lying through his teeth, testifying that my father had never mentioned a second will. He looked the judge in the eye and committed perjury with a smile. "The document the plaintiff claims to have found is a mystery to me," Henderson said. "In all my years as the family's counsel." "Then perhaps you should explain this," my lawyer interrupted. "We didn't just present the will. We presented the archival records showing that Henderson had received a certified letter from Thorne's office 5 days after Dad's death. A letter he had claimed never arrived. We had him trapped." The color drained from Henderson's face. He looked at Jason, and for the first time, the golden boy looked like a ghost. But I had one more no-way moment for them. Before the judge could rule on the will, I stood up. "Your Honor, while we wait for the final validation of the signature, I'd like to submit a different set of documents. Over the last year, my brother has taken out 3 massive private loans to keep the farm afloat. He used the land as collateral." Jason sneered. "That's none of your business, Emily." "Actually it is," I said, leaning forward, "because I bought those loans." 6 months ago, through a holding company, I became your primary creditor, Jason. You've missed the last 3 payments. As of 9 o'clock this morning, I have initiated foreclosure on every acre you own. The silence was deafening. I didn't just win the court case. I had already taken his kingdom while he was busy defending the gates. A week later, the court stripped Henderson of his license and validated the second will. Jason was ordered to pay $4 million in restitution. He was broke, disgraced, and homeless. I went to the farm one last time to watch him pack. He looked like a stranger, small, old, and hollow. As he put his last bag in the car, he looked toward the hill where our father was buried. "Can I at least visit the grave?" Jason asked, his voice cracking. "Before I leave town?" I looked at him and I didn't feel the triumph I expected. I just felt the weight of the years he had stolen. "Of course you can," I said, "but you don't get to call yourself the keeper of his legacy anymore. You aren't a Carter, Jason. You're just a man who forgot that the land remembers who loves it." I handed him an envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000. "Take it," I said. "It's what you thought my life was worth. Let's see how much yours is." I watched him drive away, a cloud of dust trailing behind a man who had everything and understood nothing. I turned back to the house where Leo was already running through the tall grass, his laughter echoing against the barn. My father died on a Friday. It took me 7 years to get home. But as I stood there, I realized that the house wasn't the inheritance. The strength I'd found in the dark was. Some people inherit their future. I had to build mine.